Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor. Now, Chinese brands are a major talking point in the new car world at the moment, but will consumers be convinced to switch their allegiances? And what is the potential impact of these brands on the UK retail market? Joining me to speak more on this is Auto Trader's Ian Plummer. Hello, Ian.
Hi there, James. Nice to be with you.
Always good to have you on, Ian. Now, I think it's fair to say we've got the right man for the job to talk about this because I'm sure countless others, saw all your stuff on LinkedIn. You spent a lot of time in China recently, and you visited some of the big manufacturers there. Firstly, what stood out for you on your trip?
What stood out is a market that seems to have leapt ahead of ours in terms of automotive. It seems to be going faster than ours. So that's a significant strategic challenge for the rest of the automotive industry, because you don't want to be behind anybody. But if you're behind and they're going faster, you're not even going to be catching up anytime soon. That's the main standout, to be honest. And that really comes from their progress on electric cars. So we decided to go out there and spend a couple of weeks there touring around many OEMs, different parts of the country, enjoying the country. Amazing to see how the country's modernized. Fascinating place, very welcoming people, etc. But we went to try and understand the market and bring back that understanding, because it does seem a very top of mind sort of subject for many of our partners, where everyone's thinking through what the consequences may be, the implications for the UK and so on. But simply, you have to bear in mind the scale of what you're learning over there, because you're seeing a market where 2/3 of the world's EVs are being built in China, of course. 3/4 of the world's batteries are being built over there. So if we're shifting to electric, that's where it's happening. Their market overall for new cars, probably we did about 26 million cars last year. They'll probably do 30 million this year. That's about twice what the US is, what Europe is. And at the moment, just about half of that, a little bit more than half of that, is what they call new energy vehicles, a combination of anything with a plug-in hybrid or pure battery electric. So understanding all of that and bringing back some ideas of the implications of what it means, whether working with those Chinese brands as they come into the UK market, and what that will mean for the rest of the automotive space was really useful, we think, for us, and we'd be delighted to share with anybody who'd like to know more, including obviously with you today.
It's obvious that the UK EV market is way behind China's. And whenever we see the latest sales figures, they're not as positive as people might hope. Why do you think that is? I mean, particularly this comparison to China. I mean, why are we lagging behind China so much, do you think?
Well, we're certainly lagging behind them, that's for sure. I just quoted you the 50% number. You know that the UK is seeing around 16% of new car registrations going the way of electric choices just now. We said that we know that the UK buyer is receptive to EVs when they're priced correctly, which they are in the used car market right now. They've been reduced in prices, we know, from the winter of 22-23, where there was a surge of supply and a slowdown of demand with the energy prices rising, fuel declining at that time and so on. But we know when they're priced right, as they are now, at parity, in essence, a 36-month, 30,000 equivalent ICE and EV is literally at price equivalents. They turn very well. They're fast turners on our platform. So consumers like them when they're priced well. When you've got the benefit in kind advantage, using salary sacrifice to reduce the price gap, again, people like them. Put simply, in the UK, we have a price gap, which is the biggest blocker for many people. You've still got a 35% or so gap between the typical new ICE vehicle and the new EV equivalent, being obviously 35% more expensive. You've also got a gap of choice. You've only got 9 models in the UK that are available under £30,000. So that's 10 times less than that which is available in the ICE market. So there's a lack of choice, there's a lack of affordability, and that is basically stalling our progression in the UK. And we sold our first sort of series of electric cars to basically older, wealthier folks who could afford to pay what Bill Gates calls the green premium, the price of doing what feels like the right thing. And we've kind of run out of wealthy folks. And to get the mass market to buy EVs, you need to do what they call in sort of change management. When you look at the bell curve of change or adoption of new technology, you jump the chasm between, literally, it is 16% of the early adopters, the initial people in the vanguard, and then the early adopters, to get to the early majority. We're stuck, and we can't make that jump, because what you're asking people to do in the middle classes mass market is to buy something that today is still too expensive for them and more expensive than they frankly need to pay for a comparable vehicle in terms of performance, what it gives them. So pricing is the biggest blocker in our market and the driver in the Chinese example, because they are at price parity. And the common refrain I heard in China was that the mass market choice is to buy electric, because everyone knows that electric vehicles are at price parity to buy, if not actually lower in terms of price than their ICE equivalents. The very competitive market which has driven that situation. And the logical, rational choice is therefore get a cheaper car to buy, an even cheaper car to run. Obviously, you're then going to think, well, which is the best car? And they then think Chinese vehicles are the best ones for them. 85% of the ones they buy when they go electric are Chinese. We're way off that point. The rational choice in the UK, unfortunately, isn't yet to go electric. We need to get over this early cohort that went for the emotional, very good reasons to buy electric, to get people doing what they are doing or keen to do in used cars, as I said in the beginning of this response, but to do that in new car. And for that, we are going to need to, if you like, prime the pump and stimulate demand by creating more affordability.
Yeah, yeah. Is it just that affordability point? Is it just the price point that is the Chinese brand's advantage over the European brands? Is it just price alone, or is there more at play here, do you think?
Well, I think there's two ways of answering that. The Chinese product coming into the UK is representative of what you're seeing over in China, but to a, let's say, small degree, because there's so much of it in China that when you walk around the OEMs we've seen and the auto show, you just see so many exceptionally good-looking cars with, by all accounts, great quality credentials and affordability. And they seem to be at sort of second-generation levels of performance in terms of electric. It's more about what the car does for you in terms of comfort, technology, infotainment, and so on, rather than just range and affordability, because they've cracked those points. So they are focusing what I think we would call 3 S's, taking away learnings from the visit we did over there, sort of the 3 S's of scale, software, and speed. So that's what's enabling them to continue bringing great products to market. And as they hopefully bring more of those products into the UK market, choice will open up for more consumers to look at ever better products that suit their needs, whether they be in terms of affordability, technology, and so on. But the scale that they have, everyone's heard the example of BYD, I'm sure, known for even their roll-on, roll-off boats that they've been putting into fleet recently. But the fact that they integrate vertically across virtually everything in their chain, apart from the glass and the rubber, yeah, that gives them huge power, purchasing power and efficiencies. They have their own batteries. The battery technology is evolving fast in the market these days. So if you're working at what I call China speed, and having product cycles of, let's say, 2 years, which is literally what many people are claiming they're doing just now, launching many more products much quicker compared to sort of 5-6 years for legacy brands that we're more used to. As a new technology comes into play that is cheaper, that maybe the kilowatt hour price of batteries has come down massively below $100 now, you're able to integrate that into your car and get a better level of performance with a probably better battery, charging faster, riding longer at a lower price. So kind of everything works in your favor. It's, like you say, not just affordability, but the benefits of that scale and speed allows you to provide a better product. And the software point, just to finish on that one, there's 2 angles there. Great tech, great connectivity and so on, that really is a factor of choice for a Chinese consumer. We know it's a factor for many buyers over here, but it also enables partnerships. We've seen people like Baidu, the Google equivalent, Huawei, telephone provider, Xiaomi, telephone and sort of connected household goods provider. They're in this industry, providing their skills and so on to OEMs that are then able to partner with these people and bring their cars out quicker and better. So again, you get software driving consumer choice, product quality, as well as speed of bringing things to market, and equally driving the way you even build cars. Everyone talks about software-defined vehicles these days, rethinking the way cars are built. Tesla embraced that. Rethought the sort of gigacasting kind of approach and the unboxed approach. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but Google it and have a look. It's well worth understanding. They build cars in a different way. It's simpler and cheaper than the way we've typically bought them, and it's quicker and more productive. So the whole combination, if you like, of that, James, brings a product which isn't just cheap or affordable. It's actually a very attractive, highly refined series of great products that you see in the Chinese market, to be frank.
When you talk about the charging infrastructure in the UK, There are two schools of thought. You get some people who say, look, it's growing at a massive rate every single year. And then you get other people who say it's still not suitable for their needs. I mean, is that a similar situation in China, or is it totally different?
Um, by all accounts, it's not totally cracked, but they have different solutions. I mean, NEO, for example, we'd love to see over here, a great sort of technology of battery swapping. There is plenty of battery swapping opportunity with the scale that NEO has in China, and hopefully they'll partner with others and create more scale of more brands able to use similar technology. But aside from that, that kind of solution, they, like I mentioned, have quicker speed of market integration, able to bring better battery technology to the fore. So charging is less of a problem if you've got a better battery, put simply. But by all accounts, the charging solutions that are available to people who often live in flats would be better than we have in our market. So a flat owner is supposed to have access to a charging solution in the car park of their flat, and there is always a car park underneath their flat. They might have two cars. They might not necessarily have access to a charger other than an open public one outside in the street. But many people are charging either therefore in their flat or in their office and or workplace of work and so on. So it doesn't seem that public charging along highways is such a massively controversial or a highly used factor. Probably something that needs to develop as well. But in essence, what seems really quite crucial is that it's simpler. The payment methods are simpler. Everyone uses in China Alipay. Alipay is a bit like the Amazon, if you like, of China, or they use WeChat, a bit like the WhatsApp of China. Excuse me. But that makes it very simple. We know that's challenging over here. But what you pay is also extremely simple because you pay the same amount wherever you charge. And I know that means things are state controlled and we have maybe different views on whether we think that's good or not so good. But in the UK, we know we have different rates publicly to privately. We have different tax rates publicly to privately. And you never even can see on a charging station, sort of in lights above it, like you can in a petrol station, what the price is until maybe you're connected to the app. So it's just simply, you know the price you're going to pay for your charge. So I think that's quite a big driver, to be honest with you.
Now, obviously, Auto Trader has a huge amount of data on everything, but I know you've been doing a lot of data in terms of the Chinese brands. So, I mean, what is this data telling you about the willingness for car buyers to embrace the Chinese brands?
A great question. I mean, I think it's very varied. There are different types of Chinese brand, let's say, in the UK context. I mean, we've got many Chinese owned and built product already in our market. To give you an idea, for example, 10% of all new cars sold in the UK are roughly down to cars either built in China or owned by Chinese brands. That would include Tesla, whose right-hand drive vehicles are built still in Shanghai. That would include Volvo, Polestar. We tend to think of them as Swedish. They kind of are, but they're owned by a Chinese brand, of course. We tend to think of MG as kind of British, but it is heritage-wise owned by a Chinese group nonetheless. Add all that together, add in the likes of the newcomers that launched in the UK last year, such as Aura and BYD, and more recently Chery with Omoda and Jayco, others coming, Chang'an, etc., and many others on the way. And you've got sort of a different group of brands. Like some of those I mentioned are better known for the different reasons I highlighted, Sweden, UK, heritage, and so on, than the more recent ones I've just quoted. But there are those newer players that I just quoted, the ones that launched last year. They're already getting 6 to 7% share of the new EV ad views on Auto Trader. So they're turning a lot of heads. What they aren't yet doing is getting quite the same level of lead generation, which would imply that people are very much curious. Let's say the curiosity is piqued when they see them and they like what they see, but they aren't necessarily as reassured as they need to be to go further and express that interest in a lead, sort of go down the funnel. So I think the EV players coming in from China are taking the right approach of partnering with excellent retailers who've got local awareness and local contacts and so on. And the consumer driving by a BYD dealership in Scotland, and let's say see that Arnold Clark or Peter Vardy is selling those vehicles and know that they can go somewhere if they have a problem with the vehicle, if they have the need for after sales and so on. That level of reassurance is likely to help these new entrant brands grow quite quickly now as that expands. And they are typically now taking the dealer route in nearly all cases. And that should help them, I believe, do something like what the Korean brands have done in prior times. We didn't necessarily expect Kia or Hyundai to grow as fast as they did, but boy, they had a catalyst from scrappage and they used it really well, and look at how brilliantly they've developed ever since.
Yeah.
To give you just one last number, 33% of all the EVs we already sell in the UK are also coming from those Chinese built or owned products. So we're already seeing penetration of these vehicles. We should expect it to continue if they stay ahead of the game.
Now, there's been a lot of noise. I know, particularly at the beginning of this year, there was a lot of noise about tariffs and could the EU impose tariffs on Chinese EVs? Do you think that could actually have an impact on the success of these brands outside of China?
It certainly could have an impact. It depends, obviously, if the EU does anything and if the UK follows, neither of which is certain. It depends also to what degree they put a tariff up. If you do what the US has done, then you're putting up a very big wall. I think the US obviously has got an election coming along. Joe Biden, for example, has got unions he wants support from, and they've got a very large homegrown automotive industry that they put a lot of money into with the what's called the IRA Act over there in recent times. But it's a rather different context. Will the EU do the same? I'm not sure. The French brands used to be pushing in one direction to get sort of protection. Now, more recently, particularly with Stellantis partnering with Leapmotor, less inclined to. The German brands are very much disinclined to do this because they have a lot of profitability riding what they build and sell in China. And they know that they would do well to maintain good relations with China. But specifically over here, you look at also players like BYD, who said recently how committed they are to a local strategy. And in Europe, for Europe strategy, as they called it, which means a plant that they're planning in Hungary, they're building out right now. Chery, Yamoda, JQ, they're planning the same in Spain just now. So they'll be able to avoid those tariffs if they build locally. But equally, they're investing in local supply chain, local retailers, marketing, BYD supporting the Euros. They've got a very clear approach to become seen, I think, progressively as a part of the EU space, including building factories, creating jobs, helping retailers, creating further jobs, creating more value in the chain, generating tax revenues and so on. So frankly, should we do any form of protection? I'd be very much loath to see that happening from a consumer point of view. A consumer, clearly, as I've highlighted earlier, will benefit from having more choice, more affordability, and some fantastic cars to help them on a transition towards electric. We know it's challenging for a consumer, it's challenging for the OEMs, for the retailers, but even the legacy OEMs that see the risk and, if you like, the threat from new entrant brands coming in with some great products, they know it's going to be tough for them. I think many of them now are saying that they know that it's a good thing to have the stimulus from competition that challenges them to go further and accelerates their own journey down this route to electric. So for all those reasons, I think everyone wins, definitely the environment too, if we can encourage anything that helps us make that challenging transition to electric just a little bit easier.
Finally, Ian, I fear that you've mentioned quite a few things I'm just about to ask you, but just a bit of a conclusion to this interview. What the big question I just want to sort of get answered really is, what does this growth in the Chinese entrants mean for the UK, both at a consumer level, but also the dealers who are watching this?
Well, I think there's probably two or three things. Firstly, it definitely will help us grow the market, and that's what we need to do. We have a challenging climate context we have to always bear in mind. I think in all this context, however hard we all know that the EV transition is, we should always remember that climate change is happening. We've seen some highly concerning numbers coming out recently about the state of warming of our oceans. I think every day so far this year has been a record temperature. We've seen month-on-month consecutive numbers of increasing worldwide air temperatures as well. So the problem is here, and our industry is part of the problem. We need to be part of the solution. So we need to do all we can to find the best answers to a consumer's challenge of making an affordable choice to go electric. So grow the market, give more choice, more affordable choice, good for the consumer. From a retailer perspective, I think working with additional partners, it creates a huge opportunity, and I know many of them are embracing that opportunity, heading off to China, understanding which partner might suit their profile, their demographic, their region best. And I think that's only an opportunity from a retailer perspective. And like I said, from a brand legacy OEM point of view, there's a lot of challenge. But ultimately, if we can grow the market, if we can make the transition work and get that catalyst factor that I described earlier, the stimulus factor really playing through, it should only hopefully be positive for everybody.
Amazing, Ian. Thank you so much for sharing some insight today. I feel as though it's something we're probably going to be talking about a lot in the future, but for today, it was lovely to get a really good deep dive into it. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Well, that's it for today's Car Dealer Live. Join us again very soon. Bye-bye.